who brought you. Bring you
the only rhyme that
My name's Carlos and welcome to another episode of Bite High No Limit. This is the podcast which is about people's relationship with technology. In this episode we are looking at some mystery tapes. These tapes were discovered some years ago. They were reel-to-reel tapes and they were recorded by a family member, my wife's grandfather, who was a local historian. Various reel-to-reel tapes of people's voices that he was making an account of for research into the Essex accent, and they find them quite fascinating. One particular tape I pulled out was one about ghost stories, and I thought, hold on, I can probably do something about that for the podcast with it coming up at Halloween. So there's a nice ghost stories podcast coming up at the right time of year. However, the recording itself was at some point extracted from reel-to-reel to a standard C90, and the C90 cassette obviously has degraded over time. So this is my best extraction of that tape, and you'll have to excuse some of the sound quality with it. You may have to listen hard in some areas, but I tried not to embellish it too much because I wanted the sound and the feel of how it was recorded captured. The recording itself was from 1970. Now, the interesting thing about the recording is that I originally thought that this was recorded straight to the reel-to-reel from the author of the broadcast, but it turns out after a further search, this was actually spoken by a gentleman called Peter Bibby in 1970. And it was a part of an Essex Records Office recording that was released by the Essex Education Resource Centre, made in 1970. When I did some further investigation on it, I found that another recording made by Peter Bibby about witches in Essex was also available. So what I've done is I've included this recording as well after the recording of the Mersea Ghost. The quality obviously is a lot better. And I'm releasing this under Creative Commons BY-NC-SA 3.0. There's no available online recording for the Mersea Ghost, so I'm including the extracted copy that we found in the tapes. However, the Essex Witches is available on SA 6-289-1 from the Essex Records Office and is available on SoundCloud. And the takedown request for the particular recording is available from the Essex Records Office, where you can fill in a form if it wished to be struck off. But the recording was originally made in 1970, and it's completely fascinating that you can listen to the original Essex dialect, one of many. Also listen to some very interesting ghost stories and the art of storytelling as well. So I hope that you do go and enjoy these two recordings. And without further ado, that's enough of me going on with the show.
That's right. Settle yourself down. Now, I dare say some on you have been to Mersea Island, ain't you? Nice in the summer, little bit of beach and that. Though quite often the tide will come right up over the road, and you just had to sit there and wait for it to go down again. That road across to Mersea has got a special name, you know. I wonder if any of you know it. That's called the Strood. That's right, the Strood. S-T-R-O-O-D. That's been there a long time and all, you know. The Strood across the Mersea has. That was there when the old Romans was here. Only of course that time of day it wasn't a proper road like it is now. That wasn't more than a stony pathway across the soft mud, what you could walk across when the tide was right out. A causeway like. A casey, my old dad used to call it. Of course, Colchester ain't far up the road from there, about 8 or 9 mile, I suppose. And as you well know, that was a rare big Roman place, Colchester was. Regular city they had there. Camalodunum, they called it. Anyhow, they old Romans, they thought a rare lot of Mersey. They called it Mersea, which means the Isle of the Sea. And they reckoned that was a rare, healthy sort of place. They used to send their soldiers there what was ill, or what had been wounded, so they'd get better quick. Another thing, they Romans built a great old lighthouse on Mersey, you know. I suppose to guide their boats what was a going up the river to Colchester, so they won't get stuck on the mud banks. Somewhere near where West Mersea Church is now, that lighthouse war. Of course, they used it for a lookout tower and all, because they old Vikings from over the water. They was always a raiding the coast them days. Regular vicious lot, they Vikings, by all accounts. Anyhow, I was talking about the Strood, wasn't I? You know, that road across to Mersey Island. And what I was going to tell you was about the ghost, what some people reckon they've heard round there. I said heard, mind you, not seen, but heard. They do say that that's the ghost of one of the old Roman soldiers, maybe officer, the centurion, what they're called. And they reckon they hear his footsteps a marching about. Where do we come from then, you might say? Well, just you listen. Now, just after you're across the Strood and come onto the island, there's a fork in the road. And if you want to go to West Mersea, you take the right fork. And the left fork will take you to East Mersea. Well, if you go up that left fork, not above half a mile, that slope up a bit, and that's called Barrow Hill. You'll come to a farmhouse on your left, and just past that on your left, you'll see a great old grassy mound with trees on it. Now, I said that's called Barrow Hill, didn't I? You know what a barrow is, don't you? No, I don't mean a wheelbarrow. A barrow is an old burial mound, and that's just what that mound just past the farm is, an old burial mound. Sometime last century, in the 1800s, some fella dug in that mound, and he found a lead casket and a glass bowl full of human ashes. Now there is a tale of how 2 young Danish chiefs had a scrap over some young Saxon gal and killed each other, and of how that's them what's buried in that mound. But the experts say that that's a Romano-British mound, so more than likely them ashes was the remains of a Roman soldier, and probably a high-ranking one, seeing as how they made that big old mound for them. Now, just afore the landed end of the Strood, as you're coming from Colchester, there's a pub on your right called the Rose, the Peldon Rose, so in the nearest village is Peldon. About 50 years ago, that was kept by a woman named Mrs. Jane Pullen. Little woman she was. Well, one time she'd have been up to Mersey to do a bit of shopping, most like, and she was a-walking back. It had got dark, but there was a good moon, so she could see well enough. Now, she got just past the turning off to East Mersey. Then she heard footsteps a-coming down off of Barrow Hill. She kept on a-going, but still she could hear them footsteps, and a sort of regular clanking noise and all. They come down off of Barrow Hill, she say, a steady tramp, tramp like a soldier a-marching. And he caught up with me and walked right down onto the street. I couldn't see nobody, yet them feet was close, and side of me, for near as I could have touched them. I bopped right down, she say, and looked along the road in the moonlight, but I couldn't see nobody, and still them footsteps kept a-marching. She kept on going, then she met a fellow what she knew, and he stood there shaking like a leaf. I could hear him, he say, but I can't see nobody. Where is he? Jane Pullen, she say, just you keep along with me, he won't hurt you. That's just that old Roman come out of his bar to go for his walk. That soon she wasn't afeard of that old Roman, but her grandson was one time. Now, as you're crossing onto Mersea, you can see over on your right a line of stunted trees and bushes. Well, they're on Ray Island. That's a bird sanctuary now, but back in the 1920s that was just a stretch of rough grass, and the wildflowers would go out there to shoot a few wild duck and that. Well, Mrs. Pullen's grandson, named Ivan, he pitched his tent on Ray Island, maybe to have a bit of kip, then get up before first light so as to catch the ducks a coming in. He turned in, and he was just a-dropping off to sleep when he heard footsteps a-coming along the path what ran from the street. He heard those footsteps a-splashing through the puddles. Then they come right up to the tent. They stopped a minute, like, as though somebody was a-listening. Then they moved right round the tent. Then bless me if they didn't walk right through the tent, though the flap was laced tight shut, and they made the ground shake right aside of where Ivan Pullen was a-lying. He was that scared, he went froze cold. He undid the flaps and he got out of the tent, and though there was a bright moon, he couldn't see nothing nor nobody. He couldn't get off of Ray Island quick enough. He rolled up his gear and rushed back to the Peldon Road just as quick as he could. He never tried to spend another night on Ray Island, I'll bet a shilling. I don't know what to make of it, I'm sure. Well, I shall head up there doing now, I reckon. It's been nice talking to you. And I'll talk to you again another time. Oh, by the way, if you get out of the ordnance map, you can see what I've been talking about. Cheer out.
Hi, I'm Layla Johnston from Shift Run Stop, and you're listening to Bite High No Limit.
How do, all on you? How you getting along, all right? Now, settle yourselves down comfortable, because there's something I want to ask you. Now then, I wonder if any of you know what a scrap faggot is. That's right, scrap faggot. Well, for them as don't, I'll tell you. That's an Old Essex name for a witch. Up Suffolk way, they used to say scratch faggot, but the Essex version was scrap faggot. Course, when you hear me start talking about witches, I suppose you start thinking about ugly old women with long pointed chins and noses and long pointed hats, riding about on broomsticks. But there's more to them than that, I can tell you. You take that old word scrap faggot, what means witch. Now, at Great Leighs, what lays between Chelmsford and Braintree, is a place called Scrap Faggot Green. And at Scrap Faggot Green, there laid for hundreds of years a great old stone, weighed about 2 ton, what was supposed to mark where a witch lay buried. Well, towards the end of the last war, the road had to be widened. That was the Yanks what done it. Might have been something to do with the airfield at Boreham, I don't know for sure. Well, anyhow, early October 1944 that was, the Yank bulldozers shifted that great old stone, and then funny things started to happen. At the church, one of the bells kept a-ringing in the small hours. The church clock struck 12 at 2:30 in the morning, and then lost an hour every day. Then come Sunday morning, the bell ringers found the bell ropes had been changed round, so they all rung the wrong bells. A-ringing the changes, as you might say. All round the village, strange things happened. Hens stopped a-laying, sheep got out, though there weren't no gaps in the hedges. Stalks of corn was flung into other fields. Haystacks was shoved over. In the builders' yards, scaffold poles were scattered about as though they was matchsticks. A boulder, what weighed nigh on 200 weight, was found right agin the door of the pub. And at a cottage what was being done up, all the paint pots and brushes what had been left neat and tidy the day afore was found upstairs under the beds. Well, of course, all them goings on made people stop and think a bit. So at midnight, on October the 11th, 1944, they put the witch's stone back to where it was afore they bulldozers shifted it. And from then on, all the funny things what had been going on stopped happening. Of course, you might say it was some of the village lads a-larking about after dark, else perhaps a few of them after turning out time at the pub. You might well be right. And some of the things what happened, like the hens are going all flay, might well have happened anyway. That do go to show, though, that one little hint about witchcraft, and people tend to blame it for any little thing what might go wrong. Of course, that was all the more true hundreds of years ago, when people was ignorant and more superstitious, because they never had no education. Then, any old people what lived on their own was likely to get blamed for any little thing what went wrong. Then they'd get accused of being a witch and they'd get arrested and taken to court. That'd be all the more likely if the old person happened to have a pet, like a cat or a dog or a rabbit or a mouse or something, because witches were supposed to have an imp in the shape of a small animal what the witch had sent to do mischief to people. Mind you, I dare say there was many a crafty old un who liked to be thought of as a witch, because then people would do things for 'em and look after 'em for fear of being cursed or something. And I reckon too that many a person had knowledge of how to make poisons from plants, knowledge handed down in the family like, and they'd use these poisons to make people or animals ill or even kill 'em, so as to make people afraid on 'em. Howsomever, they run terrible risks them days. You could be hung if you was reckoned to be a witch, or burnt if you'd poisoned somebody. And in the 1500s, there was witch trials in Chelmsford, and quite a few people was hung as a result. Mind you, not everybody found guilty of witchcraft was hung. Them days, witchcraft was reckoned to be just an ordinary sort of crime, and a lot of people found guilty of it just got locked up for a few months, else got put in the pillory or the stocks for a time. Now, I can't talk about Essex witches without telling you about a nasty piece of work called Matthew Hopkins. He was a lawyer at Manningtree, and in 1644, though he should have known better because his father was a parson, he went to every town and village in the north-east of Essex, and if any poor old woman was suspected of being a witch, then he got her to confess to being one. And the way he got 'em to confess warn't very nice, to say the least of it. He'd make the poor old woman sit cross-legged on a stool or a table in the middle of a bare room and tie her in that position so she couldn't move. Then he'd keep her there without food and without letting her go to sleep. Well, as you can imagine, after 2 or 3 days of that, she'd be so dead beat she confessed to anything, as long as she got some sleep. And I dare say some of them got in such a state they didn't know what they was a-saying. Well, by July 1645, he'd got 33 people in prison waiting for trial at Chelmsford. But by the day of the trial, the 29th of July, 4 on 'em had died. Rose Hollybread of St Osyth, Elizabeth Gibson of Thorpe Le Soken, Joan Cooper of Clacton, and Mary Cook of Langham. Of the 29 what was left, 19 was sentenced to be hung, but one of them, Margaret Moon, died afore they could hang her. Of course, old Matthew Hopkins was highly delighted at this, so he started a-calling himself the Witch-Finder General. I had 2 assistants just as nasty as himself, called John Stern and Mary Phillips, and started travelling round East Anglia, and a lot of towns paid him 20 shillin just to go and find their witches. By this time, though, he weren't allowed by law to starve and keep awake his victims, so he used what was called trial by swimming. For this, the victim's right thumb was tied to her left big toe, and she was chucked into a deep river or pond. If she sunk, they reckoned she was innocent, whether she drowned or not, and if she floated, they reckoned she was a witch. So either way, the poor soul didn't stand much chance. So old Matthew Hopkins and his crew went on, and as a result of their handiwork, 60 people was hanged in Essex, another 40 in Bury St Edmunds, and more in Norfolk and Huntingdon. Fortunately, though, in 1647, old Hopkins got ill and went back home to Manningtree, where he died. He was buried at Mistley on the 12th of August, 1647. After old Hopkins went, some better educated people realised how wrong his ways were, and the last official hanging of a witch in England happened at Exeter in 1684. However, people still harried poor old souls they thought was witches. In 1699, there was a widow Common living in Coggeshall who people thought was a witch. 3 times, on July the 13th, the 19th and the 24th, they chucked her in the river to see if she'd sink or swim. And 3 times she floated. She caught a chill and never really got round after it, and she was buried on December the 27th, 1699, at the north side of Coggeshall Church. In 1712, a judge at Brentwood ruled that if anybody died as a result of trial by swimming, them as done it would be treated as murderers, but still some people carried on a-doing it. As late as 1863, there was a poor old chap lived in a little hut near Sybil Ednam. Nobody knew much about him, and his tongue had been cut out so he couldn't speak, and they called him Dummy. Well, some woman named Emma Smith reckoned he'd put a curse on her, so she stirred the people up, and her and a chap called Sam Stammers chucked poor Dummy in the river and wouldn't let him get out till he was near drowned. He died a month out of that, poor old soul. Well, there's more tales about witches in Essex than I've got time to tell you. But next time you see a picture of some old gal in a pointed hat riding her broom, you just think of what I've been a-saying. Cheer out.
Well, I hope you enjoyed those supernatural tales from Essex, told in an Essex accent. There was certainly a lot more recordings made in that batch of tapes that I found, and I regard our family relative who did the research back in the early 70s perhaps as one of the first podcasters. If you'd like to support the show in any way at all, feel free to share it on the socials, rate it or like it, tell anybody. You could also buy me a Ko-fi, which is ko-fi.com/bite high. Any contribution does go to offset the podcast. It is only a hobby, but a little bit does go a long way. So thank you very much for listening, and until next time, keep it blocky.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.